Hello, everybody. Welcome to ASCDI Asia Pacific 2021. I want to thank you all for joining us today and in some parts of the world this evening. My name's Joe Marion. I'm president of ASCDI. ASCDI is the Association of Service, Communications, Data, and ITAD Providers. Early in 2020, we were all planning on meeting in Singapore, but the pandemic had other ideas. Since then, the world has gotten a lot smaller, and ASCDI and our membership have become a lot more relevant. Customers began looking all over for equipment. Used equipment during the pandemic became very important and necessary. New equipment was hard to find. We even heard stories of some manufacturers buying their own used equipment on the secondary market. Many customers learned that the ASCDI is the place where you can find trustworthy partners, largely because of our ethics and our anti-counterfeit policy. Another change happened. The world became greener. Climate change is being addressed all around the world. Right to repair movements are springing up all around the globe, which are forcing manufacturers to provide software and parts necessary to repair secondary market products. And people have learned that the greenest thing to do is to put used equipment back into productive use. Data privacy has also become a big issue. Customers no longer want to find their data being sold on the dark web. So certified ITADs have grown because they've embraced green and they've embraced data privacy. You'll hear more about that later today. All these things have made our market and the ASCDI more relevant than ever before. We are the champions of green. We are the champions of data protection. We are the champions of ethical resellers. We really are an industry reborn. I'd like to now bring on the screen our former chairman, Neil Vill from World Data. Neil, besides being former chairman, Neil is currently a board of director. He's also the chairman of our anti-counterfeit committee. Neil?
Thanks, Joe, and thanks everyone. I'm happy to be here. I wish we were together in person, but that will come soon, I hope. And thank you all for participating. As Joe mentioned, Neil Vill, I'm CEO of World Data Products, reseller in the U.S. Been on the board of directors for about 15 years, and was also past chairman. Two things I'd like to just talk about briefly. One is it's really what brings our companies together and what makes ASCDI unique among trade associations in our industry and in fact in many others. It's really two things, our code of ethics and also our anti-counterfeit policy. Both of those initiatives work in concert to protect our customers and to protect our industry. Our code of ethics has been in place for about 30 years now, which is really an incredible long life in any industry, let alone ours. And I'd encourage you to go to the ASCDI website, ascdi.com. I can't do it justice in my 2-minute time slot here, but it basically requires all ASCDI members to maintain and enforce the highest standards of ethical and professional conduct. There are all kinds of guidelines in here, keeping confidentiality, living up to agreements, paying on time. There's also a grievance process where if, for various reasons, if you think a deal that you have or another company has violated the ASCDI Code of Ethics, even if that company is not a member of ASCDI, you as a member can utilize the ASCDI ethics process to have a process. And that's been tried and true over those 30-year periods to handle these complaints and disciplinary actions and get justice in terms of what you were due. So it's been a great proven process over the years. Also, just briefly, our anti-counterfeit policy. which was enacted over 10 years ago, which is, again, eons ago in our industry. But we were the leaders, ASCDI, in implementing this. And it requires all of our members to really have zero tolerance of counterfeit product. It has test and inspection requirements, obligation not to pay a vendor if you think and can prove that their product is counterfeit, even if it's suspected to be counterfeit. This policy was international in scope, international contributors, and certainly it's international in terms of its enforcement. And it's had great impact over the past 10 years in reducing the amount of counterfeit products that have been offered for sale in our industry. So again, I'd direct you to the ASCDI.com website. There's a whole bunch of information, past presentations and things on anti-counterfeit, but it's also very much helped protect our customers and ourselves against counterfeit products. I'm proud to be a part of this association for the past 15 years and also our industry. And I look forward to participating in the rest of this conference. Thanks, Joe.
Neil, thank you. And thank you for the years of service to the industry. You really are a credit to us. And
My
I
pleasure.
appreciate it. Thank you. Next, it's my pleasure to bring up our current chairman, Todd Bone from XSI. I mentioned, a reborn association. I mentioned going green. I mentioned data protection. I mentioned ITADs. Todd's the one that's led us into this new generation of ASCDI. And Todd, it's just been an honor to serve with you. And thank you very much for being here tonight.
Thanks, Joe. I tell you what, the last 4 years of being chairman has been exceptional. And, to see all the hard work that you've done to keep the association moving through COVID-19, going from in-person to online, and we're actually growing the organization, and expanding. I was very disappointed. My wife and I had big plans for Singapore. So we'll have to get back there one day, but was disappointed with that, but glad that we're seem to be getting through some things. My perspective is, and I'm just let you know who I am if you don't. Todd Bone, my company's XSI out of Atlanta, Georgia. We've been in business for 31 years and do IT maintenance services, ITAD, and professional services. We used to do a lot of refurbished products, so I've got a long history in that, so understand that portion of your businesses. I'm also on the, as well as, which is predominantly the IT maintenance companies globally, and a number of those are companies are members here, and also a board member for repair.org. So got a real good cross-section of what's going on. I am extremely excited. I can't remember a time with so many opportunities that are in our industry right now than, maybe when we were first starting our company a long time ago, when the refurbished market really hardly existed. So, with the chip shortage, and it might be short run, but now is just an unbelievable opportunity. Give you an example, we were doing a rip and replace for a very large company here in the United States. And when we went in to pull out the old equipment, we were installing refurbished equipment that they'd bought. So that made me extremely happy, considering the amount of time I've been in the industry and around refurbished product. Because in the old days, you used to have to educate somebody why they would want to buy refurbished, why it was okay, and all that kind of stuff. And now we're seeing, that's becoming the standard operating procedure for companies that obviously they can't buy new equipment. But that's going to end at some point. Chips are going to catch up. A lot of new equipment's going to, start to be shipped. But, what does that bring as an opportunity? Well, professional services, obviously you have to do the installation. It's also going to bring a big opportunity for IT asset disposition. Companies are going to have to get rid of that equipment, and they're going to have to protect that data. They're going to have to get it wiped. And then there's that aftermarket that's going to end up somewhere. If you have a good price on something, somebody's always going to buy it. So very excited about the opportunities. Can't wait to get to APAC in person for a conference. Hopefully we'll do that soon. But once again, like Neil said, just very happy to be associated with the organization.
Todd, thank you. Thank you very much. And again, as I said to Neil, thank you for your service to the association and to the industry. Next, it's my pleasure to bring up our APAC board member and There we go. Brett Rogers. Brett has spent umpteen hours early in the morning, late at night, meeting with us, making sure that this conference will be successful. Brett, I've seen Brett in his pajamas, and I've seen Brett in his overcoat. Brett, thank you so much for all the time you spend making this. I just can't say enough for you. It's going to be a great day, and it's all due to you, Brett. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe. And it's actually it's great to be part of something in our local time zone here in the most lockdown city in the world. So we lose. I think we'll keep that privilege actually, because we come out of lockdown as of midnight tomorrow night. So one more day, and that's 260 days that we've had kids homeschooled and total change of life. But it's conferences like these that keep everybody sane and bring people together. I'm kind of used to selling face to face. I'm kind of used to traveling a lot, meeting everybody. That doesn't that's a little bit harder now. And so working with ASCDI members, working with global companies, it's good to have people to call on, good to have people to work with, and make that little guy in the back corner of the world a little bit more relevant because of the people that he can speak to and the expertise he can draw down on. So just moving into the conference a little bit, my name's Brett Rogers. I'm the Director of Integrity Technology Solutions, previously working with CRB Solutions. I really want to make this an opportunity to thank our sponsors. Our sponsors are extremely important to the association, and we really value your ongoing contribution. And if I could please ask those that are attending today to respect our sponsors, communicate with them, ask them questions. They're here to help, and they're a great group of organisations to work with. Now, if we let me move to the next slide. So if we take a look at this conference, we're not just APAC, and we're not just Europe, we're not US centric. We sort of cover regions from South Africa to Russia. We've got Japan through to South America attending this conference today. So it's amazing that while COVID keeps us from traveling, it's conferences like this that sort of bring us back together. So respect the people that are on here from different backgrounds and different expertise, but it also gives you a little bit of an insight as to who is interested as to what's going on in ITAD, what is going on within our networking of industry, and where they come from. So next, I would like to also give a big shout out first of all for the 2020 Olympics that ended up becoming delivered in 2021, and nearly giving Australia an opportunity to beat the Poms in their Olympic medals. So Japan is a little bit of a focus for us today, because it's really something that it's an opportunity that I feel is a little bit untapped, and we've got Kauya presenting later on. And I want to say just a big welcome to the ASCDI members that you see up on this screen. And we look forward to working with you and communicating with you throughout the sessions, and also, in the near future. So, a little bit about the schedule. It's really, I'd like to really thank our presenters that have put in so much time and effort to get the data, to meet the amount of meetings that we've had to try and get something that is relevant to our audience, to try and get. We've got one example where we've got somebody in New Zealand having a panel with somebody in the UK, 12 hours difference. So, John, I don't know if you're on the call, but good luck getting up at 4:30. I know what it feels like. So first of all, we've got the ITAD certification. So we've got Corey Dehmey, Executive Director for Sustainable Electronic Recycling and International, really to learn the value of ITAD certification and understand that the world now has a responsibility for green thinking. The next presentation after that, 1:00 Eastern Standard Time, is Andrew Bird, who's actually a friend of mine and a colleague. Really, Andrew wants to talk about how we move from moving commodity devices to adding value by discussion to your customer. So, not just selling a box here or there, but actually trying to understand the value of that box in an organization, not just the product itself. We've got, straight after that, we've got Demystifying Japan, which is Kauya and her success with her company Arco, and how she has engaged with the Japanese industry and what she's learned about culture, what she's learned about engaging, and some of the challenges that she's had, so we can draw down on that. Straight after that, we've got talking about how to secure your data with Chris Hilton from Blanco and John Woodward from Ultratest Solutions. And it's really about discussing the landscape of data security compliance, but also looking at the value of assets that would otherwise might have been destroyed. And finally, third-party maintenance, which is going to be with Basis Bay and Todd, talking about right to repair and talk about third-party challenges when conducting maintenance services. So I look forward to having you all on board. I'll be moderating some of the presentations this afternoon. I'd like to hand it back to Joe, and please have a great afternoon. And I look forward to having a Victoria Bitter, an Asahi, or anything at the end virtually, and have a great day. Thank you.
Brett, thank you again. And Neil and Todd, thank you guys. We'll catch up with you guys in a little bit later today.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, it's my pleasure to bring up Corey Dehmey from Siri. We've asked Corey to join us today because Corey is the executive director of an organization that does certifications. Now, there's lots of certifications out there in the world. The reason why we asked Corey to join us today, because his company is the company that runs the R2 certifications. And R2 is probably one of the most relevant certifications in our industry. They certify resellers on things like data protection and environmental protection. So we've asked Carton to kind of join us today and just give us a quick overview on certifications and what R2 is all about. Corey, welcome.
Hi, Joe. Can you hear me?
Hear you well.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for having me today. Thank you for that intro, Joe. Let me just take a minute to bring up my slides.
Corey, where are you in the States today?
I am in the Northeast, near Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Got it.
DC, New York, those areas. So can you?
And I'm down in Southern Florida for you folks. So Corey, take it away.
Thanks, Joe. All right. Hi, everyone. Great to be with you. Look forward to talking to you about ITAD certification. You know, I've been in this industry for many years and in a lot of different roles. So I actually have an IT degree. I worked 12 years in the IT industry, systems administration. I was certified, Microsoft certified systems engineer for going back to NT 4.0. So I have a good knowledge of the tech space in the commercial side of it, the data center side. Many years ago, early 2000s, I was the guy dispositioning assets and selling the tech refresh items. Over 100,000 computers a year, data center equipment, mobile, getting into mobile, that space back when we had the early Blackberries. And transitioned into working in electronics recycling companies, working as a consultant, working in this certification space for many years, and to now just be able to work for the impact for a nonprofit for Siri. And so I hope that I can bring you a well-rounded informational base. So let me start by trying to put things in the context of the world we live in. So, today what we often do is we take things from the earth, we mine the materials, we make products, we use those products, and then we throw them away. And then we have this problem called waste, that we've disposed of these products, and we need to do something with it. We need to figure out how to solve that, whether it's in a landfill, incineration, whether we can recover the materials, or we're treating it at the end of the life as waste. And in this space, it's considered e-waste. So this is today. This is where we're at. This is what we've created. And I don't think it needs to be the tomorrow. So in the future, what this could all look like is really this concept of a circular economy where, initially, yes, we have to take the materials from the earth that are non-renewable. We make products, we use those products, but the way we make them, the way we use them, we can extend the life of them, we can repair them, we can reuse them. And then at the very end of that life, when there's no further utility in that product, then we have to have a commitment to recycle them, to reclaim those materials, and to put them back into the cycle to make new products. And it doesn't necessarily need to be, an electronic into a new electronic. The materials from lots of applications. You take the steel industry. Steel comes from a lot of different sources, and it all gets mixed together and melted and poured into new products. So, the goal here is to keep out waste altogether. Eliminate e-waste, you could say. So the challenge is most in the space of thinking of circular economy, right? Everyone goes right to recycling, to the end of life. And I think you all know in the ITAD space, there's so many more steps, before you actually reach that end of life. There's the returns of new products that were sold and returned, especially with COVID and buying things online. Obviously, we have a lot more returns occurring. There's also the warranty repairs. There's repairs or for a new product, we upgrade. We do this at a consumer level. We do this at a business level. We do this at the back end commercial level. And there's all these touch points within the reverse supply chain there that have decisions to make. And those decisions really impact whether we can achieve that circular economy. And it also creates opportunities, and there's also threats to it. And I think ITAD is really a great space because we talk about reuse, and so many times people think of reuse as a consumer product. I dropped it off to be recycled, and we can reuse that. Somebody will reuse it. Well, the fact is, consumer products are made to be cheaper. They're made with lower grade materials. They're not made to last as long. And so really, there's not a high percentage of reuse out of that consumer product many times. Reuse in those cases tend to occur by I give my old phone to my children or to my parents or to a friend, or I trade it, sell it online, those types of reuse opportunities. But really in business, business is on a cycle of refreshing assets. It's about managing the total cost of ownership there of those assets and keeping up with technology and being able to be productive in the work that we do. So the ITAD space is really ripe for reuse, right? I mean, there's tons of products coming out here that are better grade, better materials, will last longer, and they can be reused in a business setting or in a consumer space. So the opportunities here are one, credit to expenses. Why do I say credit to expenses? Well, that asset is really a cost. And when we dispose of that asset, to be in the right frame of mind, we shouldn't be in the frame of mind of it's a way to make money. Because let's face it, ITAD is not for any business, unless you're in this industry, of course. It's not their core business. It's something they have to figure out what to do with that old IT equipment that they're refreshing. So you put it in the right frame of mind, the opportunity is to get money back to lessen that expense, that IT expense of those assets. The other great opportunity in this world, and we've seen this in the times of COVID here and lockdowns, is digital inclusion, right? So many used products have found their way back into homes, into education, into work environments, work from home. They've really helped us through this period of time. And furthermore, going from a developed economy to developing countries, where new products really are unaffordable in many cases, these used products coming out have an opportunity to bridge that digital divide and to lift the world and include people, create commerce opportunities, create opportunities to travel, to connect with family and friends. And in such a separated world right now, that's such a great opportunity for these used electronics coming out of the ITAD space. And lastly, like I showed before, the opportunity to change the world from a linear economy where we're creating waste and we're creating dumps and incineration and all these wasteful opportunities, and turn that into something that's valuable. It's scrap. It's a commitment to changing the tide there. Putting products through the ITAD channel into reuse, repair, giving them a second life. These are all opportunities to really change that dynamic. But in doing so, there are some threats, right? When we talk about data, probably the biggest threat of data breaches is reusing that hard drive, reusing that phone that has previous data on it, because we have to make sure that we can erase all of that data so that it can't be retrieved. If it's not handled properly, or if we're cherry picking the good stuff and getting rid of the rest, we have problems of risk of environmental pollution. And along with these things, along with transboundary movements of waste, comes the risk of fines from noncompliance with laws and regulations. And ultimately, if you end up on the cover of National Geographic for the wrong reasons, it can create real brand damage and potentially irreversible brand damage. And that should be the real risk, because really we're not in the business of making money off of our old IT assets. Most businesses have other reasons for being in business and other ways that they make money, and protecting that way is really important in this process. So for these businesses, we have these multinational businesses operating around the world in many different countries, and in order to do that, they have to use a number of different providers, and it gets really complex with even within countries, with different state province regulations, local regulations, trying to comply with all these different regulations in different countries and different places of the world. And we get really inconsistent results and outcomes and increased costs to manage that. And at the end of the day, regulation is a way to organize things and then to try to create a result. But at the end of the day, regulation is just, the outcome is to punish the offenders, but doesn't stop the brand damage that can happen. So, the driver that's driving standards growth is this, businesses' reliance on more third-party providers to provide these services. They can't do it themselves in all the places in the world where they're selling their products or they're operating. So you have all these different channels that we talked about before, where there's third-party providers providing these services. And the biggest risk of that's driving this is really that data breaches, right? 60% of CIOs and IT professionals that were surveyed in a recent survey reported breaches caused by third-party service providers. So as an ITAD provider, how do we gain the trust of our customers, and how do we make sure that this doesn't happen? Most recent was the Morgan Stanley data breach that happened through a third-party ITAD provider who did not wipe the data from some of those assets. So now the fallout, Morgan Stanley is not in the business of making money off of IT assets. That's not how they're rich. But now they're dealing with fines, they're dealing with class action lawsuits, and not just their own data, but their customers' data that was exposed. So I want to touch briefly on some problems I've seen through my years in the industry here. Everybody's going to tell you they do it right, but how do you know? And sometimes ITAD providers rely on things like, their reputation, that they have a very low return rate. Well, that's great, but if I'm shipping product from, New York City to Singapore, more times than not, that used electronic products aren't going to have enough value to ship returns back that don't work. So that return rate is really a false analogy. I see a lot of times in the commercial ITAD space, right? This is high-end equipment. It requires sophistication and testing of routers and servers and the backends. And so often we see, hey, it was pulled from a working environment. And it may or may not work. We don't know. It may have been damaged in the process of recovery if it was going through the recycling stream and somebody cherry picked it out of that pile and now is selling it on the internet, calling it pulled from the working environment. It's just a risky proposition. We don't know. Others rely on this, I have a 5-star seller rating, and we all know, how you keep a 5-star seller rating by mitigating any negative feedback. So not a good indicator either. And then in my own experience, I've seen it all bundling, take all auctions. So I got a container of 20 pallets of, and there's really 4 really high valuable pallets of good stuff on there and 16 bad ones. Well, guess what? If you want my good stuff, you got to buy the whole thing, and that means taking the bad. So some other problems, within the industry we see, what is grade A, what's grade B? The grading scale is different from company to company. Many are just taking products back, visually grading it. Maybe they power it on, plug it in if they can. But hey, I don't see any damage. It's a grade A, right? It doesn't mean it's working. So there's a very big difference between grading something and testing it. And one of my pet peeves is this concept of beyond economic repair. What does that mean? Well, it means, hey, it's going to cost me too much money to actually test it, so it's not worth it. That's a business case, right? Or it's going to cost too much money to repair it. Again, a business decision. But often I see these products, beyond economic repair being wholesaled at auctions, take all bundles, still in the open market, trying to get some money out of it, again, risking that business's reputation to squeeze every penny out of it. And of course, a lot of times they're cherry picked for some parts and the rest ends up who knows where. So that brings in the problems with legal compliance, trans-boundary movements, and also environmental pollution. So how do we turn the tide on all this? How do we protect the risk and get to those opportunities? It's really a 3-part process. One, we have to have standards that identify the best practices, right? It creates a common understanding of what we should be doing. And again, just saying you meet a standard, is just a self-made claim. It doesn't really mean anything because there's no way to verify it. But with certification, this is a way of verifying whether you're actually meeting that standard. But lastly, none of this, is effective unless there's a demand, a commitment to that standard, to those certifications. So this is where we see these multinational businesses wanting to harmonize and across the world and protect their brands, requiring certifications of these standards so that they can mitigate those risks and they show that commitment. But there's a lot of different standards out there. So, where do we start? It's a really confusing landscape. 1 second, please. So these are some of the standards that are in this space of ITAD and recycling of electronics. A number of different logos you might recognize here. I'm going to talk about each of these standards on the next few slides and try to put it into perspective. So let's start with, what's driving a lot of ITAD and a lot of the customers' concerns, and that's, data security, data sanitization, is that risk of data breaches. So going back a number of years, everyone used to throw around the term DoD 5220.22. Do you know what it means? This is an old, I guess you call it a regulation within the U.S. Department of Defense, and it really applied to classified material. And I actually worked in the Department of Defense at one time and actually ran data sanitization. So I'm quite familiar with the language there. And there's not a lot that really is applicable or helpful in this scenario. So I think we just set that one aside. It's time to retire that language. There is another standard after that called NIST 800-88, National Institute of Science and Technology, another organization in the US. And this is a pretty good standard. It lays out a lot of different security controls through the process, a lot of decision points. And really the Appendix A is really helpful because it actually goes into specific types of media. So from hard drives, SSDs, CDs, floppy disks, magnetic tape, thumb drives, mobile phones. And it really talks about each specific type of device and what is effective sanitization on those types of media. So it's really good. Unfortunately, there's no way to certify to NIST 800-88, so it's really a good standard to follow, just not something that someone can verify that you're actually doing. NAID's been a common one, a lot in the U.S. and I think expanding globally. Started with paper destruction, but moved into electronic media. So sets up a lot of good security functions, employee security, facility security, different standards. Doesn't go quite so deep into the actual media like NIST 800-88 does, and actually effective methods of each type of sanitization, but really stays more at that process facility level type controls. ADISA is another twist there, and you're focusing a lot in the ITAD industry actually, and about that supply chain and the chain of custody from the customer, back through the data security, tracking and traceability, and those things. ISO 27001 is a new, hot item. It's people like to talk about it. I'll talk about it on the next screen, but not sure that it has really focused on any type of outcome of ensuring that the data actually was sanitized. So my area of expertise is obviously in the R2 standard. R2v3 is now, I'll get this a little bit later, but that's two parts. The core part requires that every R2 v3 certified facility has those data security controls. The facility controls, the processes, the accountability, and those things. Requires the physical destruction, following NIST 800-88. And then there's an enhanced level of R2 called Appendix B, data sanitization. And this really goes to that extra level of traceability, auditability, gets down into very specific requirements for data wiping, sanitization through electronic means, commercial software, verification, right? Because at the end of the day, all of this is great, but if we don't know that the data is gone, it doesn't mean anything, right? So verification important in that process. So those are the landscape of data security and data sanitization type standards that are in the market. The next layer is really management system standards, and management systems are really good and foundational. Been around for years. I'm sure you're familiar with the ISO suite here. 9001's all about quality. It's about product quality. So when we get into the ITAD space, when we get into testing and repair, it's about making sure that the products that are coming out of there work. There's consistency, functionalities, and there's good results. 14001 is all about the environment, about managing environmental risks and hazards, preventing pollution, minimizing material usage, things like that. ISO 45001, which replaces you might be familiar with OSAS 18001, and there's an Australia New Zealand standard also in the health and safety space. I'm blanking right now on the exact number of that. But this is all about health and safety, worker health and safety, protecting workers. So this is another layer of management systems designed for different purposes. The ISO 27001 really adds on to that management system practice, and it talks specifically about information systems, information management systems. So how are we managing data? How are we protecting privacy, for example? How are we controlling it, securing it, and designing those systems? So one you may not be familiar with is called RIOS. It was developed by It's the Recycling Industry Operating Standard developed by the ISRI, Institute of Scrap Recycling Industries. And RIOS is really a combination of environmental health, safety, and quality all wrapped into one focused and streamlined one on the electronics reuse and recycling industry. So it's a much leaner, more tailored fit to this, less audit time, less cost, things of that. So this is the landscape of management systems, and this is kind of the baseline: processes, policies, ways to control it. It's a really good foundation, but it doesn't guarantee outcomes, right? It doesn't mean that just because I have a management system, I'm not going to have data breaches. So it's not working towards those outcomes. I want to introduce you real briefly to something called voluntary sustainability standards, right? So these are standards that are focused on outcomes, right? Environmental pollution, transboundary movement of waste, electronic sustainability. In this space, there's really three large players, right? There's Senelec, or the EN standards out of Europe, which are really aligned with the WE regulation. They're there to support the regulation and facilitating that. So you might be familiar with EN 50625, or previously it was called WELABEX. This is the next generation of that. But really, this is about waste. So the WE, anything going into the waste stream. So it does go into reuse in EN 50614, but that's really upcycling out of the waste stream, like cherry picking some potentially reusable things. But much of the product is in the waste stream, so it's downstream of actual ITAD processors, and really not necessarily not a good fit for ITAD, in my opinion. E-Stewards includes recycling and reuse. Now, the focus of the E-Stewards standard is really about preventing transboundary movements of e-waste, or the hazardous waste. So that's geared towards that. So it allows things like landfilling of certain things, different things, just because of the purpose. But it's in this electronic sustainability world. And then R2 is really looking at that entire reverse logistics, from the first use of a device, the returns, all the way back through ITAD, reuse, and into recycling. So just to give you an idea of the landscape here, E-Stewards currently has 90 facilities. I checked a few weeks ago in USA and Mexico. WELABEX has 192 facilities in 16 of the EU member states. I'm sorry, let me explain this. WELABEX is the certification of the Senelec, the EN 50625 and their standards. And then the R2 program currently has, actually today it was 998 facilities in 32 countries. And that's a wide landscape of, electronics recyclers, collectors, brokers, refurbishers, and so forth. So since I'm biased about R2, and let me just talk about what makes R2 different. So there's tons of standards in the world, right? And the way that standards are developed can really be insightful to the credibility of the standards. Many are developed by member-driven organizations, which is nothing wrong with that. But we have to keep in mind that, it's designed to fit the members who are using it. So it's a good basis. But if you look at it, like the ISO standards, for example, are not driven by members, it's driven by stakeholders who aren't paying part of the organization to develop the standard and maintain that. So R2, is really independent. We don't have any members of CIRI. We're a nonprofit in a way that doesn't have any members. R2, the way it's developed is also CIRI is an accredited standards developer. So we go through our own audit to make sure that we have a balanced process of stakeholders who are developing the standard. It's not CIRI, it's what's called the TAC, the Technical Advisory Committee. So this is the TAC can have up to 45 volunteers. They're spread out through the US and around the world. Recyclers, refurbishers, OEMs, manufacturers, retailers, government officials, consultants, auditors, the whole gamut of stakeholders make up that TAC, and they actually decide what goes into the R2 standard. And then, like I said, it's comprehensive in the entire reverse life cycle there. And it's designed to be universally applicable. So we have many applications where, countries rely on R2 as the baseline, and then they can add, their unique requirements on top of R2. So it's designed to fit anywhere in any application in this industry. And I think that's what the new standard even expands further, and it adapts to a variety of different business models. And I think that's one of the benefits of the new standard is it's tailored to fit the different types of businesses. So I'll talk about these appendices in 1 minute, but just a little flavor. I can't obviously get into all the standard here. The requirements go into circular economy requirements, having an EH&S management system. So if you're R2 certified, you also have to have that management system certification that we talked about previously. To manage your legal requirements and being legally compliant, transboundary movements, and so forth. Track throughput, the way you sort, categorize, process the products through the warehouse and to other vendors. Of course, data security I talked about is a very important part of R2. We have what's called focus materials. So these are kind of the hazardous things like lead and mercury and batteries and those types of materials. And then you have your basic facility requirements and your transporter requirements. These are required of every R2 certified company, no matter if you are, a small cell phone refurbisher or a large, shredder operation or something in between. Now, tailored to fit is everybody has to meet the core requirements, but then there's these process requirements. These are the appendices, and these are designed for those different types of facilities. So, for example, in the ITAD space, it's Appendix C, test and repair. ITAD facilities are going to be certified to Appendix C because that's really that testing, sometimes repair, sometimes parts swapping, parts harvesting, things like that, producing working products that are functional, and those are what you're selling into the marketplace. And then sometimes some ITAD companies will be certified to Appendix D, especially electronics. So this is the real high-end commercial telecom equipment, pulling blades out of old systems that still need to be kept around because it needs to replace one since it's not being manufactured anymore as a repair to a customer. It could include medical equipment, scientific equipment, the stuff that you just can't buy in the store, the stuff that requires very sophisticated test equipment to really know if it's working or not. So those are the areas C and D that are really applicable to ITAD. And of course, it gets into Appendix B then, which is data sanitization. So this is the wiping of those devices would pull in Appendix B as well. So way too much information I can share with you tonight, but there's a wealth of information on our website. We have a knowledge base that has all kinds of training videos, Q&As, resources for you if you're interested in finding out more. The place to start is really with my friend Patty. So Patty hosts webinars at least once a month. She does one for Asia, and she does one for the US and sometimes for Europe. But these webinars are just kind of the intro to R2. And if you want to know what's all in there and how the process of certification works, this is the place to start. So go to our website, go to that knowledge base. You can sign up right there for a future class, and Patty will pull it together and answer all your questions on the standard. So today, looking at the growth, we've been doing this since the first certified facility was 2010, actually 2009, late 2009. We've grown all the way, like I said, to 998 today. A lot of this growth in recent years has been in the ITAD space, the return space. It's the reuse of mobile, for example, commercial data center equipment, and so forth. So, that's been a lot of the growth in the recent years here. And we designed a search tool on our website so that people looking for an IT processor, ones that are certified to that Appendix C, can simply pick this option here, ITAD processing or remarketing, and that'll pull up all those companies. So there's a shout out to Todd there, who was on earlier. I believe his company XSI recently got certified to R2V3 as an ITAD. And if you click this option, you should see them pop up on our website, and you can verify that they're actively R2V3 certified for test and repair. So we talked a lot about R2. Let me just tell you a little bit about SERI. So as Joe said, SERI stands for Sustainable Electronics Recycling International. And our mission as a nonprofit organization is really to create a world where electronic products are reused and recycled in a way that, one, promotes resource preservation, two, the well-being of the natural environment, and three, the health and safety of workers and communities. We do this, historically through the R2 certification program that's been a big success of ours, but also through a number of other avenues that we're working to have that impact and to align with the UN Sustainable Development Goals around the world. So Joe, I want to thank you for allowing me to share this information this evening, and I'll take any questions if there are.
Great. Corey, thank you. We have just a couple minutes, just a couple questions that I wanted to kind of throw at you. I saw, the numbers you showed me of the growth of R2 certifications around the world. Big number in the US, small number over in APAC, relatively small number in APAC. What do you see APAC as a growth? And well, first of all, what's driving that growth in the US? What's making, these companies don't want to become certified just because they have nothing better to do.
Sure.
What's driving their desire to become a certified ITAD?
Yeah, early in the process, it's about a differentiator, right? And then over time, it becomes the normal way to do business. I'll tell you honestly, I love going to trade shows and walking around and hearing people talk, and big customers, being approached by companies and wanting to do business, and they say, "Are you R2 certified?" And that always brings a smile on my face, of course, because it means we're having an impact. We're turning the tide here and building the circular economy for sustainable electronics. And but what drives a lot of it is the business world, right? It's business transactions. Look, this is a supply side equation, right? This is about getting access to better supply. And if you want better supply, you have to demonstrate that you're responsible. Like I said, everybody's going to tell you they do it right. But how do you earn that business? How do you demonstrate that you're responsible? And this is I'm not going to say easy. It's a way to do it, right? To be able to show that you're accountable and you're being audited and you're doing the right things and you can trust me. Because at the end of the day, this comes down to trust, right? You take that example of Morgan Stanley, trusting their ITAD vendor, and they didn't live up to that, unfortunately. But once the trust is broken, that's hard to recover from in this industry.
Yep. You mentioned easy. One of the rumors that I've heard about becoming a certified ITAD, it's hard, it's expensive. Can you touch on that one?
I'm not going to lie to you. It's a commitment. It's an investment. And so if you look at it as an expense, you're just always going to hate it. But it's an investment to get more supply, right? And to get better supply. And so, the investment really can turn tides for your business, especially if you're, a small business. Look, in small businesses, we do things by word of mouth, right? There's not a lot of repetition, and we rely on people. We rely on people to do it the right way. And as we grow, we have challenges in keeping that consistency because we have more workers and everybody gets a little bit of variation and a little bit of doing things differently. And then we spend all our time fighting fires, right? And trying to, on a daily basis, just put out fires, course correct, keep our customers happy. One thing that standards give you, it gives you the repetition. The thing I hear from workers is, I don't have to go to my manager. I know what to do. I have a process. And so you get consistency, you get reputation, you get less fires in the end. And that's a really big benefit to any business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard that too, that the process, no matter what certification you use, just the fact that you've put a process into your company makes you more efficient and at the end of the day, more profitable. It's an investment, but it's a payback. Yeah. I've heard that. I also, one last question. We talked about what's making the resellers become ITADs. What's making the end users look for ITADs? Why are they shopping? I hear this every day now. We're a large end user saying, "I only want to do business with an ITAD." What you touch on that, but one more time, what drives that?
Well, I think it's being driven by the quality aspect, right? What kind of product are they getting? And if I understand your question correctly, I think that's really what drives. They want to know that what they're buying is worthy, it's quality, and the price they're paying is meets that grade that you're selling it at.
Yep. I was also trying to touch on the mitigation aspect. If an end user finds his data in a landfill or finds his data out, on the dark web being sold, if he says, I just used the cheapest reseller I could find, there's one issue there. But if he says I chose an ITAD, what are the implications there? That's really where I was going.
Yeah, well, I think that's the common element, right? Is data, because we are all affected by data breaches. So I don't think the consumer has enough knowledge yet to make that decision, and there's not enough supply around as far as certified refurbishers, ITAD companies that's nearby or whatever. But we see a lot of programs, with online selling trade-ins, and that's another mark of credibility, and especially the tide turning on the environmental piece of this as well. People want to work with companies that are committed to more than just profit.
Yeah, Corey, thank you. That's great. And for you folks who are listening, if you want more information about Corey and R2, feel free to contact myself. I'll put you guys in touch. I think there's a big growth opportunity in APAC for ITADs. And I dare suggest the sooner you become a certified ITAD, the better it's going to be for your business. Corey, thank you so much. I do appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Corey. Folks, we're going to take a 4-minute break. We're going to start again in 4 minutes with a presentation on how to increase your value and your relevance. That's going to be with Brett Rogers and Andrew Bird. So just stand by, go grab a cup of coffee. We have about 3 minutes now to go, and we'll start with our next presentation. Thank you all. Hang in there.